Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
This is a catastrophe.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
That's what I wished for when I blew out my candle.
Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
The floor is yours.
Hour 2. Wednesday edition, Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Officially half that work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We got plenty to do here in the second hour. In 30 minutes, I will go back and look at my SEC baseball power rankings, kind of see how that all shook out, see how smart or not smart I was. Some LSU football coming up here in 15 minutes as well. But everybody likes to talk about pitching in the regional, and I'm going to talk now about pitching in the regional. Before we get into matchups and who needs to pitch when, which I'm going to do, let's talk about the state of the pitching staff right now. You have got Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson atop your rotation as what many people would suggest is the best 1-2 punch in all of college baseball. As far as stuff goes, Tennessee can make a claim to it. They haven't pitched as well as these two guys, no comparison. Florida State's got two wonderful pitchers led by Jamie Arnold, who could be a top 5 pick in the draft, is phenomenal. There are others in this sport that have great pitching at the top. Vanderbilt's guys are throwing it great. But Anderson and Ianson are as good as anybody. So that's a foundation where you feel like in a regional, a super regional in the first 2 games in Omaha, because you could theoretically not pitch one of them on Friday in the regional in Omaha. That doesn't exist. One of them's going to pitch. So regional, super regional, first 2 games in Omaha, that could be 13 to 15 innings of baseball right there that you feel great about those guys working for you. And then you go to the back end of the staff and you start with Kason Evans and Zach Cowan, who I still have a ton of confidence in. Kason Evans has had 16 appearances. He's worked 41 innings as a freshman. His ERA is under 2. I feel great about him. I feel great about Zach Cowan at this point, even though it got wonky at College Station, which I didn't have a big problem with. It got wonky in Columbia, which I did have a big problem with. I thought he made decent pitches in College Station that got beat. I thought he made bad pitches in Columbia that got beat. But it happens. He's made 20 appearances. He struck out 53 and walked 10. Opponents hit 219 off of him. His ERA is 2.3. I feel great about him. That's 4 guys you absolutely have a ton of confidence in. I feel like at this point, Jaden Newt has garnered a lot of confidence. He's throwing a ton of strikes. He's got plenty of arm speed. The velocity's at 95. He's throwing that split change that's very difficult to hit. And I don't feel like he's going to give you 7 innings at any point, but I feel really good about him giving you 3 or 4. I feel like Chase Shores has turned a corner. He's working out of the bullpen. He's letting it fly. The velocity's better. The arm strength's great. He's throwing some breaking balls. Like, the command's not perfect, and I don't feel like he's going to give you 7 innings, which was the hope in February that he would be that guy. At this point, he's not. But I feel really good about him for 60 pitches. So I like where you are with him. Jacob Myers is an X factor. There's no question about that, because that stuff is good enough to get anybody out. But the walks are always going to be in the back of my mind because he's led the country in walks 2 years in a row. But I feel like there's some real potential and some real confidence with him right now. Then you've got to go a notch down to get to the guys like Maverick Rizzi and Connor Ware and Cooper Williams, DJ Primo. Like, that group is the rest of the story that you're definitely going to need if you have to play on Monday at some point in the weekend. And that you hope you don't have to rely on in a big spot. And the offense is going to have to do something about that in at least one of these games. So that said, Anderson, Ianson, Evans, Cowan, Myers, Newt, Shores. That's 7 guys in tier A and 1A. And then you've got another 4 or 5 okay. And nobody has got 11 dudes, okay? So like that, don't feel like I've just run through that and you go, well, what if you get to the other guys? Like nobody's got 11. That doesn't happen. But if you have to play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, then maybe like you did last year in Chapel Hill, it takes a lot. So you are, in my opinion, set up as well as anybody as far as your pitching goes. Now, how do you do it this weekend in these matchups? Forever and ever, I have considered throwing your third or fourth starter in the first regional game. I love the fact that Paul Mainieri threw Alden Cartwright out there in a regional opener. I liked the fact that Paul Mainieri back in 2008 threw Jordan Brown. You saved, in that year, it was Blake Martin and Jared Bradford who were your best two guys. When you throw Cartwright out there, you're holding him for Nola. And okay, I like that a ton. I did not like Paul Skeens pitching against Tulane. And I think most people are on that page today. And as I look at this regional, you look at where you want to deploy the lesser arms on your staff relative to where everyone else is with their pitching on the weekend. And if I was assured that Jaden Newt and Chase Shores were going to give me what they did and Jacob Myers back on Friday, I'm going to those guys for sure. Because if you can tie Ole Miss in knots and give up 2 runs over 9 innings, you ain't going to have any problem with Little Rock. And then at that point, you go into Saturday with Anderson and Cowan and Evans and Ianson loaded for bear. And that's a massive advantage to LSU. But you're not guaranteed of that. So what if something bad happens and you throw Newt out there? Well, you can go to Case and Evans. If you feel like you can win that game with Newt. And by the way, Newt, if you start him on Friday, you're thinking 4 innings. So you're going to have to go with some other arms. You're not going to get deep into the game with Newt. He's not going to all of a sudden give you 7 one-run innings. Like, he's a 4-inning guy. So you're going to have to use some other arms. And it might be that if you throw Newt and he gives you 4 innings and it's 1-0, either way, like, are you going to go to Case and Evans at that point because it's 1-0? Like, in your head, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to pitch off. We'll throw Newt, and then we'll throw Jacob Myers out there, and the offense will score 8 or 9 runs like they did in every midweek game, and Little Rock's like a midweek team, and we'll win the game 11-2. No big deal. But that's not guaranteed. And I'm having to weigh all contingencies. If I throw Newt and it's 1-0 after 4, and he's probably done, like, do I go to Case and Evans? And then, if we've only scored, if it's 4-1, am I going to Cowan? Like, you're going to have to use additional arms. So the thought here is, if you throw Anderson, you're very likely, nothing's guaranteed, you're very likely to get 6 great innings, 7 great innings. Likely. And at that point, if it's 2-1 LSU or 3-0 LSU, go to Cowan, slam the door. If it's 11-0, because Anderson shut him out and you've hit 4 home runs, put Cooper Williams out there. And you've got Ianson ready to go in game 2. And you see how that goes. But 4 Ianson in game 2, you've got Evans, you've got Shores, you've got Newt, you've got different guys to go to. So to me, I think because LSU has a 1-2, which I've told you this a lot over the last 3 weeks. I've never felt like this about a 1-2. I liked Jump and Holman last year. I thought it was great. Poche and Lang, dudes, awesome career. But I haven't felt about a 1-2 that was on such level footing since I can remember. And so, to me, I think the best way to go about it is to say, Cade, here's the baseball on Friday. I need 7. And if he does that, and you're in a close game, great. Because you've thrown your best guy out there, and he's kept you right there. Your offense obviously didn't come together. It didn't last week either, but you had your dude out there. You're right in the game. If your offense separates, great. Go to the back end of the staff because you've got an ace coming again on Saturday. What I didn't like is if you were going to use your ace on Friday, you didn't have anybody for Saturday. And candidly, at that point, when you used Skeens on Friday, you didn't have an ace ready for Saturday. Now, Ty Floyd gave us the performance of a lifetime in the championship series against Florida. But he was not that dude at that point in the season. And then he got yanked in that game, and you had to throw Thatcher Hurd out there. Now, he was great. He struck everybody out. But he hadn't been that dude. He wasn't that dude for 2 years here. You by throwing your ace in that Friday game, you were exposing yourself on Saturday. By throwing your ace against the worst team in the field, you are not exposing yourself on Saturday. Now, you may expose yourself on Sunday, but I've got to do it somewhere. I don't have 11 aces. And you can say I'd rather do it on Sunday when somebody's out of pitching as opposed to Friday. But Friday, the jitters are there. You can play tight. I'd rather take the sure thing and ease in. And then guess what? If somebody wants to come in here at 8 o'clock at night when that game is scheduled on Sunday and beat LSU with their 6th, 7th, and 8th pitcher, God bless them. So to me, because you have the insurance policy of a second ace, give the ball to your dude, Cade Anderson, Friday at the box, 2 o'clock. Say, I need 7 innings. If you need an ace closer after those 7 innings, put him in. If you can go to the last part of your bullpen because you got a 10-run lead, all the better. I think LSU's set up fine in this weekend for Sunday and even to Monday because I'm looking at Rhode Island, who has no pitching at all, and I'm looking at Dallas Baptist, who's got 3 guys on the front end, but it's not better than what LSU's got. And 2 of those guys are going to pitch in games that LSU doesn't play Dallas Baptist. So I've never thought this in my time covering and watching LSU baseball that, hey, just take this first game as seriously as possible. This team is positioned differently than those. So to me, I'm trying to take the first 2, and these 3 teams can come get me on Sunday night. They can have all they want. They're getting some form of Shores, Evans, Newt, Myers. I mean, that's a bunch of dudes throwing 95, 96 miles an hour. And it's got to be Connor Ware and Maverick Rizzi, who, oh, by the way, throws 97 too. And you got to hand it to those guys late, or Cooper Williams, who's really done a pretty nice job in the last 3 weeks. Like, okay. I'm not one of these guys who sits here on Friday and says, well, if you need Anderson back on Monday, let's do that. Because I think if you get to that spot, like they did with Jump last year, it really compromises you for the next weekend. Landon Marceau did that in Oregon, and then he came back against a good Tennessee team and just didn't have it in the second game of that Super. If you bring your now Jared Poche did it, but if you bring your Friday guy back on Monday, I think you're in a little bit of trouble for the long haul. But I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about taking control of this thing from the front end. And to me, it's Anderson, then it's Ianson, then it's what we've got left, which is better than whatever DBU or Rhode Island or Little Rock has on the back end. That's just how I would pitch it. So those are my thoughts there. We inching ever so closer if you're looking for breakdowns of the 3 LSU opponents in this regional. I've got all of it up there at LouisianaSports.net. You can go to the LSU Sports tab over on LouisianaSports.net, and all the breakdowns of the other 3 teams and LSU are right there if you just want a refresher. It's not really in-depth stuff. I'm just telling you what they did over the course of a season, some of the statistics that jump out. I give you the strengths of the team. I give you the weaknesses of the team, then a couple of players to watch. It's not heavy reading at all. So if you'd like to look at that, you sure can over at LouisianaSports.net. If you'd like to know how to get tickets to the regional, that's also at LouisianaSports.net on the homepage as well. So lots of content going up there on the site for free. Let's come back and do a little bit more, some LSU football when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is the website. A lot of perks when you buy Genesis over at Genesis Baton Rouge. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. That's pretty good. About the best in the industry. Talking about 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance. They can't make it any easier for you. You say, well, I need the oil changed. Need to get the wiper fluid handled. Air filter's a little shoddy. Get it handled. But you don't have to compromise your whole day to get it handled. You just say, hey, I'm a Genesis driver. Come help me out. They will. They come to your house. They come to your place of business. They give you a loaner vehicle. Take yours back to the service aisle. Handle all the maintenance. Bring it right back to you. And it's complimentary for 3 years when you're a new driver. It's that type of experience you get with being behind the wheel of a Genesis. Look around the road. You'll start to notice more and more Genesis out there. It's because of the great people at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Stop by Airline at PQ. Check out the website, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Mentioned in the first hour, the SEC meetings are ongoing over in Destin, and I led the show talking about the proposed amendments to scheduling and then to the college football playoff that are being kicked around over there in the Destin sand. But one thing that did come out of the meetings was Scott Rabelais chatting with Brian Kelly. And Scott Rabelais of The Advocate, who joins the guys on Live at Lunch every week and does an awesome job for the paper, asked Brian Kelly about Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. We all know that Harold Perkins tore his ACL in the UCLA game, and then Whit Weeks was carted off the field in the bowl game. And those two guys are pretty important to the LSU defense, if you hadn't heard. And Brian Kelly said both guys are 100% clear. They're ready to do all offseason conditioning, and they'll be full throttle for fall camp. And that is not breaking news, but it's good to hear, right? Because you look at LSU's roster, specifically on the defense for the purposes of this conversation, and you look at the defensive line with Jamari Butler and Jack Pyburn, and you also added on the defensive end Patrick Payton, and then you go to Sadir Mitchell on the interior, and then you go back to the secondary, and you got Mansour Delane and Tamarcus Cooley and Jakeem Jackson, and like you brought in a ton of guys all over the defense, except at linebacker. Because I think the feeling is LSU is set up at linebacker. Greg Penn was a great leader for LSU, and he was a productive player statistically. Was he an all-conference player? He was not. Was he a high draft pick? He was not. Whit Weeks is seriously productive, is an all-conference level player, and Harold Perkins is a potential high draft pick. Now, they got to find a spot for him, but those two guys check some more boxes than Greg Penn did. And then you add in Devon Keys and what they asked him to do late in the season last year, which he did very well. Played a little bit at the nickel slot, played a little bit on the inside, played a lot of snaps in the bowl game when Weeks went down. That's a guy they feel very good about in his second year in the defense. And then West Weeks came back, which you didn't know if you were going to get as of Thanksgiving. He kind of wanted a red shirt, and then you got it across to him that, hey, if you stay, like, you are going to play, and Zach Weeks is going to come, and you can play with your very much younger brother. And it created an awesome opportunity for him, but it also really bolstered LSU's high-end depth at the linebacker spot. And I think that linebacker is really looking good for LSU in this 2025 offseason. I think that there are significant questions about how well LSU rushes the passer, significant questions about how well LSU covers man-to-man, significant questions about whether or not the safety play can get to the level that Brian Kelly has asked it to get to for now over a year. I don't have big questions about linebacker. Like, the questions I have are, how often does Harold Perkins line up here, and how often does he line up here? How often is he asked to do this? How often is he asked to do that? Is he covering more? Is he rushing the passer more? Is he playing on the inside more? But they're not like, do we have anybody that's really good on this unit? Like, that's not the question. Whit Weeks was second in the conference in tackles last year. Devon Keys was probably LSU's best freshman defender last year. And then Perkins is going to impact the game positively. I got way too many questions last year when Perkins went down and LSU started playing a little bit better against Ole Miss and playing a little bit better against Arkansas and playing a little bit better in some of those games. Like, well, is the defense better without Perkins? No, the defense is not better without Harold Perkins on the field. The defense is better when Harold Perkins is on the field and doing the things he's really good at. One of the things he's not really good at is playing right in the middle of the field on the hash, reacting to plays, getting onto the blocks of offensive guards, and shedding them to go make tackles. He's not really good at that. What he is really good at is getting up the field in pass rush and blitz situations and playing out in space, sometimes in coverage. He's really good at those two things. And he's better than anybody else they try to put in that role at that combination of things. Now, you can't spend the entire year with Harold Perkins on the edge of the line of scrimmage, flying up there trying to rush the passer and catching offensive tackles when the other team decides to run. You have to vary his role a little bit. But he can play that role and use that versatility better than anybody else you've got on the roster. So no, you don't get any better when Harold Perkins is not on the field. And Whit Weeks wasn't perfect last year. There were some plays where he didn't quite fill his assignment properly. One comes up at South Carolina, and it wasn't perfect, but it was his first year as a starter. We all loved the way he played 2 years ago, like a man with his hair on fire, but like he didn't play as much as we probably thought he should. And then it was his first year as a full-time starter last year. Now he's a seasoned vet. Now he's got a year under his belt. Now he knows how fast the game moves. Now he knows how long a season is. And he could lead the league in tackles. It would surprise no one if Whit Weeks led the SEC in tackles. And then Devon Keys, who I think is going to have a really nice year. Because they're not going to ask Devon Keys to be a stalwart middle linebacker who makes 105 stops. They're going to ask Devon Keys to complement the other two dynamic players right next to him. And I think he showed in November of last year that he's capable of doing that. So I'm hoping that LSU is, I think it's fair to say, significantly improved on defense this coming year. I'm hoping that. Expecting is probably too big a word, but I will tell you that where I can speak kind of definitively is that I have less question marks personally about LSU's second level of the defense than I do the first or the third. I think you've got the guys you need. I think you're going to put them in the positions you need to. We've had this Perkins conversation for 3 years. We'll have it one more time. Weeks has probably got 1 year left. And then Keys is hopefully blossoming into an all-league type player. And that is the nucleus of the middle of your defense that you can use to your advantage. Hopefully, you've solved some issues in coverage. Very much hopefully, you've solved your issues at safety. And hopefully, the blend of defensive front players that you've brought in and used to complement the guys that were already here is a really, really good unit. But at linebacker, I just don't have a lot of questions. I think LSU is going to be really good at linebacker. And it's great to hear from Destin that Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks are going to be out there the second the team breaks for summer workouts, and they're going to be out there kind of leading the charge. You heard Blake Baker say last week with Jacob Hester that, like, Perk's one of the leaders, and you know that Whit Weeks is. The defense needs those guys. They need them out there in the summer, and they're going to get them based on what Brian Kelly told Scott Rabelais earlier today in Destin. So very, very good stuff there from the beaches of the Florida Panhandle. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. You're looking to get into the pool of your dreams? Look no further than Renaissance Homes and Pools. Outdoor kitchens, yep, they absolutely do that. They love doing pools as well, and Joey Blanchard and his team have done it for dozens and dozens in and around Baton Rouge. The cool thing about working with Renaissance Homes and Pools is you work with Joey directly. It's a customer service and a relationship that you just can't find everywhere. Joey will be there when you do the consultation. He'll be there for the design work. He'll be there when his team is digging. He'll be there when they're finishing, and he'll be there after the completion of that process. There's value in having the owner of the company invested in what you're doing in your backyard. It's Renaissance Homes and Pools. The website with a ton of pictures and videos of their awesome work is online at builtbyrenaissance.com. But better than that, I can give you Joey Blanchard's cell phone. The owner of the company wants you to call him directly to start this process. And that is really cool and one of the great perks of working with a local company. He's at 225, obviously, 252-7745. It's 252-7745. Give Joey Blanchard a call. Say, hey, heard about Renaissance on the Hunt Palmer Show. It's time to get this pool. He'll say, awesome, let's get this thing started. And you will be thrilled with your results. It's Renaissance Homes and Pools, builtbyrenaissance.com. They bring you our Wednesday shows. All right, 30 minutes to go. Come back with more.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
On this show, we're about nothing if not accountability, right? This is a show just prides itself on integrity, accountability, holding your feet to the fire, which is why we, bashed you for your poor performance in the 999 challenge.
I still think that poor is a bit of maybe an excessive way to describe my performance.
Well, look, that's exactly the opposite of what I'm trying to convey here. We are here to take accountability for our shortcomings.
All right, you know what? I'm fine. Then I'll go ahead and just take accountability for the fact that my performance was lackluster.
I'm glad to hear that. And look, every single week we look at my SEC picks against the spread in football, and I got to face the music. Sometimes I'm phenomenal. Sometimes I'm atrocious. In the end, it generally comes out to about 50-50. But we're there to be accountable. So at this point, it's time for me to be accountable about my initial SEC baseball power rankings. We've done power rankings for 15 straight weeks here, looking at the baseball teams. We're not going to hit the whole intro and all the music and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to look at, after 1 week of baseball,
all right,
I ranked them 1 to 16, and we'll see kind of how that shook out. Let's start at the bottom. I put Missouri last. That was probably pretty safe. Now, in my final power rankings, I did put South Carolina last, but I had Missouri last. They finished last in the league. So probably pretty fair assessment there. I had South Carolina 15th right out of the chute. I think that was pretty good as well. Either way, those are the worst two teams. Now, I had Kentucky 14th in my initial power rankings. In last week's, during the SEC tournament, I had Kentucky at number 14 because I don't think they're great. And I think that Texas A&M, who did not qualify for the tournament, was the only other team that didn't qualify for the tournament, is actually better than Kentucky. But it could be sliced and diced either way. I think that was a pretty reasonable take. I had Oklahoma at 13, which they were probably a little bit better than that. They were probably a little bit better than A&M. They were probably a little bit better than Mississippi State. But they were in the right realm there, so we were okay. I had Ole Miss at 12. That's a miss. Ole Miss was better than 12. They got a host. They could have gotten a top 8. I didn't like the fact that they had 3 seniors in their rotation to start the season. That tells me you don't have draftable dudes, which is generally a problem. But they hit a ton of homers, and they were pretty good. They got to the SC tournament final. If they win that game, they're probably a top 8. So I missed on that one. I had Auburn at 11. That was a miss. Auburn much better than that. They had a great season. But those two were the only misses here in this part because I had Bama at 10, and that's right about where I think they should have been. Then Vandy at 9.
Yeah.
That's going to be a miss. They're the number 1 overall seed. They won 19 games in the league without playing Mississippi State, Missouri, or South Carolina. They won the SC tournament.
You just continue to be one of the worst Vanderbilt handicappers in any sport.
Let me say that, and I don't think this is deferring of blame. I'm just bringing in my misery loves company thing. Like, I remember having a conversation with Joe Healy, like a month in, and I was like, this just doesn't look like Vanderbilt used to look. And he was like, yeah, it doesn't. And, they had a lot of like big time MLB hitters in their lineup for years. And I don't know if they have that now. They don't have the J.J. Buldays and the Brian Reynolds.
Dansby Swanson.
Dansby and like those guys. But they pitch it like crazy, and they continue to do that. So Vandy, a lot better than 9. I had Texas at 8. So now we're struggling because like those are the top 2 seeds in the tournament, and I had them at 8 and 9 in the conference.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Georgia at 7. Probably better than that, but the pitching, not great. I think what I said about them was like, they still hit a lot and their velocity's better, but are they going to pitch? I don't know. I had Georgia at 7, had Mississippi State at 6. That was atrocious. I liked their ace, and I thought that they had some hitting pieces back from last year's team that was pretty good. Like, they almost hosted last year. They should have hosted last year, and it all just fell apart until the last 3 weeks of the season. So that was a miss. And then you get into the top 5, which I had Arkansas at 5. That's probably wrong. I had Florida at 4, which maybe is more right now than it was a month ago.
You were in trouble a few months ago.
At 1 and 11?
Yeah, that was not good.
And then I had LSU at 3, Tennessee at 2, and A&M at 1. How'd the Aggies do? How does Michael Early still have a job?
That's a great question.
What are we doing? What is Trev Alberts is in Destin. He needs to be in College Station dealing with a new baseball coach. Is kind of what I think. And Kendall Rogers did say on Monday like that he expects that A&M will not stand pat. But my question is like, when do you not stand pat? Like, you don't have any more games to play.
What are you waiting for?
You don't have to go behind your coach's back anymore. And like, Mississippi State is very likely in the job market right now. And you are theoretically going to be competing with them for head coaching spots. So, like, I would sincerely look into that. But I missed that with him at number 1 with everybody else.
Yeah, it's not like...
And then Tennessee finished, 6th in the league?
Yeah.
I had him at 2?
Yeah.
Would you be shocked if they won the national championship?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you?
Surprised. Not shocked. You're telling me in a regional in Knoxville this weekend, they're going to throw probably Marcus Phillips in the first game and Liam Doyle in the second game?
Yeah. This isn't like whenever Ole Miss won. Like they have more talent than
and
that
then
team.
They're going to have to go to Fayetteville. And, we'll see, but that's where their path leads. By the way, if LSU does get to Omaha, they will play the winner of that Fayetteville-Knoxville pool. So it's probably Arkansas and Tennessee in the first game in Omaha if LSU gets there. But that's a long way from right now. But ultimately, I had some significant misses. I think Ole Miss was a big miss at 12. Auburn was a big miss at 11. Vanderbilt was a big miss at 9. Texas a big miss at 8. Mississippi State a miss at 6. Florida a miss at 4. A&M a miss at 1. So like half were probably
as usually,
off by 5 or 6.
You're always about 50-50 on most things. You got there again for this one.
50-50, is that good or not? That really is the question.
It's neither. That's it. It's just in the middle.
It's like the Seinfeld episode where he's even Steven.
Yeah, even Steven.
Just can't seem to get ahead, not really falling behind. Well, guess what really matters is that I handicap LSU properly, and I had LSU as the number 3 team in the SEC after 1 week of baseball, and they finished the 3rd seed in the SEC.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
If I can
That's what really matters,
if I can handicap the hometown team, I've got a chance. I've got a fighting chance.
That's where it counts.
To be reasonably well thought of. Not very. I was still getting DMs, by the way, when LSU got a top 8 seed. Got a DM. Let me read it. I'm going to read the DM on because people were listening to me. They're like, were people really sending DMs? This one didn't have profanity, but it said, "Hey, bud, wanted to check in on you. I know you are such an expert on baseball. So how can they give LSU a top 8 seed?" That was at 9:30 p.m. on Monday night after LSU got a top 8 seed.
They got you, Hunt.
Just to complete that person got to the computer or the phone at 9:30 and thought, you know what? Hunt said LSU was not getting a top 8. I'm going to bust his chops on this via DM. Check this out.
They got you, Hunt.
When in fact, I never said that. I never said they weren't getting a top 8. Ever. I just said, I feel good about it. Didn't think it was locked up after that first deal. And so I just put, hey, not an expert, just a talk show host. Said for 3 weeks they would get one. Thrilled it worked out. Go Tigers.
And hey, guess what? They got the 6th one. They were only 2 off from not getting it. So it's not like it was a lock as your point was is they wasn't a lock.
I'll never know. But all I can do, and then I get the clickbait thing, which I still just am. And then like people were calling me names on Tiger droppings because of clickbait. I don't get paid when people look at my tweets. I'm not sure what I get out of that.
You don't get paid.
I get paid. I get paid.
You
it's
do.
not when people look at my tweets.
No,
that doesn't get me paid. And I didn't write a story that said that. I just tweeted it on a Sunday evening. So. But people still blowing up the DMs, just nailing me via the DMs.
Man,
it took me 2 days to recover from that tweet.
I can imagine.
That DM. But I finally have made it out. I was able to hug both of my children this morning.
Thank goodness.
I was able to make it out after that sick DM that was fired my way, which was just completely made up. And it's amazing to me sometimes how people just hear whatever they want. But they do. That's okay. Part of the gig. But we got accountability. To go back to the root of this segment.
Yes,
so we'll always be there to answer your questions. Come back and close it out next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Our Rad Dad contest is back and bigger than ever. Roaming Shot Outdoors and Citizens Bank and Trust bring your dad's favorite gifts ever. A green egg thanks to Goodwood Hardware, a steak pack from Chris's Specialty Foods, Manly soap from Hawk Soap, and a hunting class for 2 from Roaming Shot Outdoors. Upload pictures at 1045ESPN.com now through June 8th. Then get your friends and family to vote June 9th through the 12th. Happy Father's Day to all those rad dads out there. You're not a rad dad, Hunt.
I was going to ask, think I'm a rad dad?
No, I knew I was, yeah. No, you're not.
I mean, I do some pretty rad stuff.
Really? Give us an example.
I played in a golf tournament last weekend.
Oh, wow.
12 teams in our flight, Beck.
Yeah? Where did you finish?
11th.
Oh, hey, not last.
No, we did not get last.
Not last.
I won closest to the hole.
Okay.
On the 6th hole, which was we've had 7 after that. On the 6th hole on Sunday, closest to the pin.
Wow.
3 feet, 3 inches.
Ooh, Hunt.
Won a new belt.
Man.
Love to see it.
Yeah, it's great.
Did I make the putt? Yes or no?
No.
I did make the putt, birdie. 4 points. Love to see it. Still got 11th out of 12. Maybe next year we'll be back in contention. But
maybe. How'd your dad do, by the way?
They did not do well.
Yeah.
It was not good. Not a great effort. They did finish positive on their quota the last day after 2 really poor performances.
He's not going to quit golf again, is he, though?
Not to my knowledge.
All right,
no.
that's good.
Doesn't sound like they'll be back and better than ever.
Got to keep Mr. Palmer
year.
playing, man.
Got to keep him out there.
Yeah.
I got to get my handicap up. We got it rose a little bit.
So what you're saying is you need to inflate your handicap to worse than what you really are.
I need to quit 1 out of 20 rounds playing really good. Just scrap that one
just
out.
None. But okay, but here's the problem with that. What if you do that, then you lose that round? So you might need that round at some point.
No,
huh?
I don't. No, so I can't ever have it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I think that's gonna be. I need to get rid of the 1 round on there that's causing a little bit of problem. But my handicap's probably about right now.
But it's really hard. And it's really hard to get rid of that round because you're always going to keep your best rounds and you don't play a lot.
I don't play a lot. It's tough scene. That's all right. I had a great time.
That's good.
Wonderful time. Shout out Southern Trace.
Yeah.
We got any take it or leave it's?
No. Let's see. I can probably come up with a few. Let's see. No, that's not a good one. No, I don't have one actually. I got to get back into the swing of things.
How was Wrigleyville?
It was great. The weather, the whole week, the weather was not that.
I was watching the Cubs game last night. Everyone was in coats.
Yeah. So thankfully we went to the game on Monday and it was a 120. So it was not bad. We were in the sun. My brother actually got sunburnt, even though it was like 50, 55, 60 degrees. But the weather for the game was great. And otherwise, the rest of the time, it was in the 50s, which is not ideal. I would not like to go to Chicago and have to wear a jacket most of the time.
That's the thing with Chicago. It is the best summer city in the country.
It is.
It's incredible. But it does not warm up until the middle of June.
No.
It's everyone's at the beach Memorial Day weekend, and everybody in Chicago's in jackets.
Yes. It was when the sun, it wasn't cloudy. Usually it's always cloudy. When the sun was out, it was fine. Like you could wear a long sleeve shirt and some shorts and you'd be fine. But when it was dark and at night it was cold. But it was a great trip. You know, we hit all the normal spots. We did the architecture tour, all that.
Pizza?
Yeah, we did lose some pros, some cons from the group on that one. Not all loved it, but you know it's the whole deep dish thing.
Portillo's?
Yeah, of course. You gotta do that every time. Have found, and hit a few other.
Where'd you go before the game? Did you go to
Yeah,
the bar?
so we did the boat architecture tour that morning. So
Okay.
the game was at 1:20. We did the architecture tour, ended at like 12, and then we ended up, and then we took the train to Wrigley.
The L.
The Red Line.
It got off the Addison stop.
Yes, of course. You know that. You know. I mean, I feel like I wouldn't picture you guys as a train guy, but
We did. I haven't. I've stayed in Wrigleyville the last few times and walked.
yeah.
But we did take the train out to the United Center last time. There was a
Okay.
music festival, and we took it out there.
Yeah.
I wasn't. My confidence level on the train, knowing I was going the right direction, was like 77%.
Yeah,
Like I
so-
was pretty sure I was going the right way, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, and you gotta, especially if you have a big group, it's okay. But like me and my wife we're the kind of the veterans of going to Chicago among the group, so we were kind of the ones who had the experience of going on the train, and so I had to make sure that I was like getting everybody going to the right spot, not going the wrong way on the train. And so, but it was fine. It was easy, from where we were at. You just get on the Red Line and it gets all the way to Wrigley. But it was great, man. We had a fun time. I'm glad. We're probably end up going almost every year at this point. It's just it's a really easy trip to make.
It is. I fear my next trip may not be for a while. It sounds like we're going to try to do a 5th anniversary trip next year, which is not going to be to Chicago. And it just seems like Wrigley is very far away from me right now, which is very difficult for me to come to terms with. That's all right. I am really loving watching the Cubs these days because they're playing awesome, even though their best two pitchers aren't there.
There was actually a what if in the chat about what if the Cubs win the Central World Series bound. If they can get healthy again with the pitching wise, then
the Rockies are mind-blowingly awful.
Yes, it was.
They're 9-45 or something.
Yeah.
Like that's.
Yeah.
Come on, man. We talked about the White Sox all year last year. The Rockies are on pace to be worse than that.
Yeah, it was. They were so bad, man. Like it was pretty shocking. It really was a very weird game just because, like I said, Jameson Taillon had a perfect game going into like the 5th or 6th inning. And then the Cubs just couldn't get a hit against the Rockies pitcher who's got like an 8 ERA and he's one of the worst starting pitchers in the league and they couldn't get a hit, but I mean, it ended up getting the win, so that was good. I got to fly the W, so.
Fly the dub. We like that. We also like getting out of here, which we're going to do right now. Matt's going to drive you home next on After Further View. Excited for tomorrow's show. Talk to Chris Blair. We'll talk to Joe Healy. Get you keep ready for the Baton Rouge Regional, which will crank up on Friday. I'm going to go write some more for the website. See you tomorrow, same time, same place.
The Hunt Palmer Show.